Before starting this program, I just want to understand few things. Probably you should help me.
Sir, okay. So we are on live on YouTube now, but still we can discuss. Not a big deal. Please, sir, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, we can discuss, sir. Yeah.
My question:
Shall I brief about the program to you, sir?
is there any participants coming here, or only for YouTube purpose we are doing this? That's one question.
Whatever the discussion made between us, everything will be available on this YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So
only 3 or 4 members will be here.
only 2-3 members. That's the one question. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I request Professor Ravichandran to take us further. Please,
Okay.
sir.
Hearty welcome to all for this virtual intensive program on sustainable development and community engagement. Uh, Most respected today's speaker, Dr. Jyothi Satyabalan, Professor National Institute of Rural Development and Panchayat Raj Institutions, Hyderabad. Most respected regional coordinators, Bharat Abhiyan. Most respected coordinators of the participating institutions and the students' friends. Uh, it gives me great pleasure to invite you for this wonderful session today. You may be knowing that MG Narega is India's biggest and largest program, which ensures a daily package, a minimum package for the poor and the have-nots. When it was introduced as a pan-India program, there were a lot of criticism leveled on this program, on the nature and the implementation of these programs. But slowly, when we were studying the impact of MG Narega here and there, and there are a lot of research is also going on, and we are getting a lot of literatures, and that we ensure that a minimum package is ensured for the people, those who need the support of the government programs. So in that context, MG Narega has close linkage with the Sustainable Development Goals. As a participants of this program, everybody should know about it. How this MG Narega program, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act and the scheme ensures the livelihood opportunity for the poor and weaker sections in the country, and it also helps to manage the common property resources in the countryside. So, by understanding it and its relevance to the Sustainable Development Goals, the UBA volunteers can have an idea to what extent they can intervene in the success of the MG Narega as well as the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals through innovative solutions and technological solutions. So, in that context, we have requested Professor Jyoti Satyabalan. He is a professor in the Center for Wage and Livelihoods, National Institute of Rural Development, Hyderabad, Panchayat Raj Institution, Hyderabad. Professor has a very distinguished academic career and training career in this field. He had his academic program at the famous institution, ISEC Bangalore, and currently he is at the NITI. And when we asked, requested him, sir, we need your support to mold the personality of the students, knowledge personality of the students towards the MG Narega and its relevance to SDG. He has accepted it. So, on behalf of Regional Coordinating Institution, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, Gandhigram Rural Institute, and on behalf of the National Coordinating Institution, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, I extend a warm and sincere welcome to you, sir. Your presence definitely will help us to understand the relationship between MG Narega and the Sustainable Development Goals. So, in that context, just I want to brief to Professor Satyabalan. Sir, this is a pan-India program covering about 3,000 students. They are listening the program through YouTube. So the program is planned in such a way that we have planned the program in such a way that they can listen the program as and when they feel time. So at online, students will be there, and after the class hours, they can listen the program. During the program, we are identifying certain areas for their mini project also. So after the theoretical input, they are expected to submit a mini project. So 89 participating institutions on Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, they are joining, covering 29 regional coordinating institutions. You know very well that the NIRD is also one of the regional coordinating institution under Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, and is also subject committee member for the subject expert group in Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. So again, once again, I extend warm welcome to you, sir. Please enlighten us about the MG Narega and its relevance to achievement of sustainable development goals, sir. Please take up, sir.
Thank you very much. And let me express my sincere thanks to Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, IIT Delhi, and Professor Ravi Chandran for inviting me to this lecture. Grateful to all of you for this invitation. So there are 2-3 things here. The number one is sustainable development goals. I hope these students already learned about sustainable development goal, and I don't think I need to explain this in detail, all the goals and targets, but I'll give you a brief gist of it in the beginning. The second part of my lecture is on Narega, what Narega stands for, what is it all about Narega. So I just briefly explain about the Narega. Then the third part, I would like to connect Narega with the SDGs and how one can link Narega with the SDG goals. So that is the third part of my lecture. I think I will conclude with that, the third part, how we are working forward to achieve the SDG goals. There's an year 2015. We remember this is a very important year as far as SDG is concerned. That was the year we began the Sustainable Development Goals. And India is a member country. You know, there is 193 UN member countries. They all agreed to implement 17 goals. Each goal is having targets. So if you count the targets, it comes to 169 targets. What's the aim of these targets? To achieve sustainability in development practice. This is very important. The sustainability that we continuously using in development literature and also used by development practitioners. There are different dimensions for sustainability. There is a human dimension for sustainability. There is also an environmental dimension for sustainability. Human, I mean, there is a social, economic, and there's kind of different human dimensions, you see. If you examine the Sustainable Development Goals, you can see that it's based on certain principles. The UN has prepared, it's based on certain principles. We always, in our lecture, we say that there is 5 Ps, you know, the people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. All these idea, you know, the words, it starts with the letter P. People, the United Nations, you know, the poverty, hunger, this all centered to the people, you see. The planet is a concern, the environment, the climate change, it's a concern. The prosperity is a concern here. And also peace is a concern. There's no development today in the world without peace. Peace is something, it's becoming very costly for us, you know, whether it is local or it's at the regional level or at a national level, international level. This is very important and significant role it plays in our in ensuring the quality of life in our day-to-day things. Then the partnership, without cooperation, without network, there's no development today. You know, development is not a standalone kind of things. It could be achieved with a partnership. So it's based on these principles, and the United Nations, you know, the team it's the high level political committee. They put 17 goals. For example, there is 1 to 7 goals. You see, 1 to 7. I always say that these are more people centric. For example, end poverty in any forms. It says in the number 1. The number 2, they say that end hunger or achieve food security, which is very important. So this is again people-centric kind of a thing. And also healthy lives and well-being it talks about. That's it. This is the time of pandemic, and it's corona is there everywhere. The corona COVID-19 affected all over the world, so we are struggling these days. So a good well-being and also a healthy life, it's becoming a challenge today. Then there is also a goal that talks about inclusiveness, equity principles. Development is not only growing the economy. So whatever extra rupee or dollar that you bring into your economy has to be divided fairly among all the people in this world. So the goal number 4 talks about more inclusive growth, more equitable, and education, and also promoting lifelong opportunities. That's what the goal number 4. This is again, I say, it's based on the principle of people. The first one. Then gender, in all the rural development programs, gender become an important concern today. Whether there is any flagship programs of the Ministry of Rural Development you take, gender is an important aspect. Gender, mainstreaming gender, that's very important. And women and girls. Okay. So then availability and sustainable management of water resources. You know that the livelihood security, don't forget this concept, livelihood security. I will come to that concept later when I explain you Narega. But see that energy, water, and also food, these are the 3 important pillars that ensure livelihood security. So goal number 6 in sustainable development goal that talks about sustainable management of water. It also talks about sanitation, cleanliness. That's very important, to keep our environment and personal hygiene and everything is become very important today. Then energy, I said that's a one important pillar of achieving livelihood security, that we will come to that point later when I'm taking the Narega aspect of it. So from 1 to 7, this is the character, this is the way it is characterized in the SDG goals. So I know that you already learned this from other lectures in the past, so we will not go into the details of these points. Then you can see that goal number 8 to 12, this I put them into one category, like promoting sustained, inclusive, sustainable growth. That's our responsibility. We need growth. We need also productive employment and also a decent work. From the Narega, it talks about unskilled manual labor, and many of them coming there are illiterate people, old age groups, and all. So even in that kind of a scenario, this is very important. You must ensure a decent work. The labor dignity must be respected. It's relevant. So then you have, if you move to the goal number 9, you see resilient infrastructure. So I will connect this point with the Narega a little later, because what do you mean by resilient? So resilience to climate change, for example, Narega promote lots of infrastructure. It must be resilient to climate, and also it must be lead to better infrastructure that must lead to industrialization. It must lead to making the market more perfect or the value chain more perfect. That kind of investment we need there. That's all about the goal number 9. Come to goal number 10. Reducing inequality between regions, it's important. Some, for example, even take the case of India, some states are much better off states as compared to some states. If you take the data of SECC data, for example, and try to plot that in the Indian map, you can see some states are below average, some are average states, some are better off states. Take any of such indicators. So the regional inequality we should try to reduce. This is not only applicable within the country, it's applicable across countries, across globe, it is applicable, that one. Then make cities and human settlement more inclusive or a safe, resilient, and sustainable. Our cities, is it safe place or it's a sustainable cities? So many of the European cities and the Western world today is promoting more green cities. They need more sustainable cities. Their infrastructure must be resilient to climate change. They don't want to infrastructure that will release more carbon into the atmosphere. We should make it more sustainable cities. Then that's up to 12. Then you see some goals from 13 to 15. It talks more on environment and green and all more on planets. Like, for example, the goal number 13, it talks urgent action on climate change. You see, today also I read something in the newspaper on this urgent, the IPCC report is just out. I think it's Hindu newspaper reported or Times of India reported that today's newspaper, you please go through that. It's extreme weather they are predicting. The IPCC is predicting that in the future, extreme weather. So we are going to face such kind of things. We should take such scientific warning very seriously and act on that, in terms of adaptation to that, in terms of mitigation to that, we should act. So it talks on climate change in goal 30. 14, it's on sustainable use of oceans and seas. These are very important. You know how our oceans are polluted and all. So I'm not spending time on that. Let us move. Then protect, restore, promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystem. It talks about the life on the earth, our land use practices. Our forests are important. Our biodiversity is important. We are also facing the problem of desertification today. This all we have to address, the degradation of natural systems, biodiversity loss. Recently, the IPBES reports out, and how many species are going to extinct, and it's already, it's disappeared from the planet. You see such report. These species are very important. It's a responsibility to protect and keep the species for our future generation. That is very important. Then probably the 13th one is promote peaceful, inclusive societies. Peace. Terrorism you see everywhere. The war you see everywhere. We need to end this war, terror activities, everything, and the human living on the earth need a peaceful life. So it's also important. The last goal that talks about 17, it's on partnership. Without partnership, without collaboration, or without network, you will not be able to achieve these goals. Let me come to overall. In some time in the past, the Ministry of Rural Development done some exercise how we will contribute to these goals. There are important flagship programs. I'm sure you are aware of these flagship programs of the ministry. The number one is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. This is a scheme. It is an act also. So the act, we got it translated into scheme for implementation purpose. So this is a statutory program, and I hope you know what is statutory program. This is an act, it's a law, right? So it's, if you wanted to change any of the character of this program, the Indian Parliament has to decide, not only the Ministry of Rural Development. So it's a statutory program. Then you have other flagship programs like Day NRLM, DDU GKY. We also have other programs like NSAP and all. So all these flagship programs, have its own contributions to the human well-being. It can contribute to the first 7, or it can contribute to the next 5, or the 3, the next to 3. I made a classification, a typology of these SDGs. So one can link these flagship programs with the SDGs very well. For example, the Narega, it talks about 1 to 8. It's contribute to one from goal number 1 to 8. Please do an exercise. The students can do an exercise. You just read the Narega guideline and also the goal number from 1 to 8, and you try to link it, how it's contributing. It talks about a poverty-free country. When I say poverty-free country, you should also think of poverty-free villages, poverty-free panchayats, or poverty-free blocks and districts and like that. So this process, if you start thinking from bottoms to the top, it is a kind of bottoms approach to think about poverty-free nation. We need to start the planning from the bottom. That is what the Narega says. So you start from the bottom and goes up and eradicate the poverty very well, while the Narega can contribute. Take the case of NRLM. NRLM also contribute to that, like a poverty-free environment. DDU-GKY, as it talks about diversification of livelihood, skilling of people. So that in that sense, it's also contribute to poverty-free goal. Then social assistance are provided to the aged people through pension schemes, old age pensions, widow pensions, and many other physically challenged people will get a pension. So these are all contributions, and in an indirect way, we contribute to the poverty-free country. We also in the have a PM program on Sadak Yojana. It's an infrastructure creation. So it's contribute to the resilient infrastructure in this country. I'm just taking the overall link before going into the Narega, So it talks about the resilient infrastructure. One can very well link with the goal number 9, improved connectivity. Your village, when it gets connected to an urban area, you can transport what all you produced from your village to the urban area and market it very well. You can avoid the middlemen. You will get the best price for your product. The value chain will improve in that is the way we are working. So each and every action under PMGSY has a contribution to the SDG goals. You have also you have SAGI, and a peaceful and inclusive society. We try to make it, and we will contribute to grow goal number 16 if you take the SAGI program. Then strengthening villages and infrastructure connectivity. Again, we are working on urban programs. Then we have construction of small houses for the poor people. That is also called PMKSY. So there's lots of convergence, lots of interlinkages between these flagship programs you can see, and this is very well connected to the SDG goals. Each program contributed that. As a student, my request to you is you should take each program and its objectives, and then you try to connect with the SDGs and its targets, how you can prepare your own maps and see how it's gone. We are doing in our centers and in research organizations in more empirical way. You try to do at an objective way, at your capacity. That will help you to learn more what is SDG and rural development programs and how it is linked each other. Now, let us come to Narega. Narega, I mentioned, then we will connect Narega with the SDG. So Narega, what is Manrega? The Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Program. Sometimes we just say it's an employment program for unskilled manual labor, but that's not fully true. That's the main objective, but it's not fully true. If you read the act, the preamble of the act, you can see that the Act talks about livelihood security. You see, I just tell you what is written in the preamble. It's enhancement of livelihood security of rural households by providing at least 100 days of guaranteed wage employment in every financial year to every household whose adult members volunteer to do unskilled manual work. This is a sentence written in the preamble of the Act. Everything is there. If you elaborate this preamble, you see the entire Act and its clauses here. It's a livelihood security as the main objective. So you generate at least 100 days of employment for whom unskilled manual labor, when you will do it, in the financial year you will do it, but you will not target anybody. It is a self-targeted program. Adult members has to self-target. If you need employment, you have to target yourself and come forward and apply for a employment. That is the idea of MGNREGS. So if you think, if somebody think I don't have any other livelihood source to get some income, I must go for Narega and do the work and get some money and improve my condition. So it's a self-targeted program in that sense. So it's livelihood security as the main, but employment generation as a prime objective. But simply generating employment is not the idea. You have to create an asset when you generate employment. The work should result into asset creation. And also there are other important aspects in Narega, like when we plan the whole work, it should result in strengthening the decentralized governance of the system, of the country. It's a promise to the decentralized, the Panchayat Raj Act and the amendment in the Constitution to achieve the decentralized system of governments in this country. So Narega made a promise that we will strengthen that system. Another important dimension of it's inclusiveness. There are certain clauses in the Act. You have to take care of the marginalized communities like SC, ST, smallholders. If you read the Narega guideline, you can see 8 vulnerable categories. It's defined there. And these vulnerable categories has to get certain assets which is listed under category B of assets list in the guidelines, so one can read that. So what I mean by assets and assets creation, look at the assets that Narega talks about. There are 260 approved work under Narega. Broadly, you can divide them as NRM and natural resource management ones and non-natural resource management. And among natural resource management, again, you see agriculture-related works and also non-agriculture related works. Narega also says that you must spend more than 60% of money into this kind of assets. So it should give a return to the people. It should help to augment the livelihood of the people on the one side. And also it should help the environment. You see, you are trying to get a balance here while creating these assets, the environment versus livelihood kind of a balance. Then you have non-NRM assets like creating small infrastructure in rural areas, that can go in agriculture, or common facilities for Anganwadi or panchayats, and all that kind of infrastructure will come under that. So when you give employment and create such assets, there are main concerns. You see the local ecological concerns. What kind of assets I'm creating and whether these assets help the local ecology. For example, I'm doing a afforestation program, planting trees. The trees that I'm planting will suit to the local ecology or not. That is a major concern. Am I planting exotic species here, a species that brought from outside, from Latin America, and bringing here, planting in Narega? Am I doing that? Or I am promoting my native species, an ecological concern. When I bring back, can I bring back my river into life? Many rivers in this country already dead. In many rivers, it's already become drainage. Can we bring them back? Instead, local ecological concern. Agroecology is a concern. And how can I improve the livelihood of people and also make them more adaptive to the climate change. This kind of action will result in achieving SDGs. We should not forget that, and how best I can converge with other programs in this rural development or outside the department. So that is the way we try to contribute to the sustainable development goals of this country. So some exercise, our own exercise, that's in Narega, in a straightforward way contribute to 13 goals. Or I can say that 27 targets out of, in a very direct way, 27 targets of sustainable development goals. We don't have indicators for all, to measure these one, to monitor these ones. There are certain indicators developed at the United Nations level we adopted. There's certain indicators developed by the Ministry of Statistics and Planning we adopted. Some indicators our own Ministry Rural Development have. These are the indicators that we use to monitor these targets and these goals. So at present, the estimate shows that 42 indicators we have, and out of these 42 indicators, 15 indicators are available either with partial data or there are 10 indicators without any data. That's a kind of assessment today as far as monitoring these NREGA indicators with respect to SDG is concerned. So probably I would like to tell you some, I don't know the time permit, another few minutes. I would take one or two things here and explain at least goal number 1, poverty. Then because many other things, I request the students to do such exercise. Let us take the case of poverty and see what NREGA is doing here. There is different targets under poverty. What is the goal? It says, the goal says end poverty in all its forms everywhere. See the word in all its forms, it's very important. India was looking only into the consumption poverty or income poverty for a long time. When we got SECC data, we tried to see other forms of poverty, like poverty in education forms or other infrastructure forms. All such kind of vulnerability appeared in the poverty literature. Today we are talking about multi-dimensional poverty. We wanted to end poverty in its all forms everywhere. And you can think from the panchayat to the country level, this one. So what NREGA is doing on this, MGNREGS, we know it's a huge money allocated by government for this purpose. So naturally, this money, when we pump into the economy, it should result into poverty eradication, and also it should result into creation of better assets. I said these assets are supposed to give a return in the future or a flow of income that should help us to eradicate poverty. That's what the NREGA is doing. So now to monitor what we have, this kind of a flow of income, it's a total annual budget, what we allocated. It's a more than lakh crore rupees allocated. We should, and over a period, if you see the allocation from 2006 onwards, the allocation is increasing like anything, and it has come to 1.12 lakh crore rupees today. There was special allocation last year due to COVID-19. So we use this trend to see and monitor how much money is going into poverty eradication. So also percent of poverty alleviation, what percentage of total poverty alleviation, one can see in terms of these budgets. That's another indicator. So then again, by 2030, again we have a target, reduce at least by half of the proportion of men, women, and children in all ages living in poverty in all its dimensions according to the national definitions. Each country has its own definitions. MNREG is part, we know that NREGA is part of the resource allocated by the government, and directly influence the poverty. So this is so Narega's contribution to poverty. And you should also see Narega is giving priority for SC, ST, that kind of marginalized communities, and try to create category B assets in their private land or the property. So that way it's helping poverty eradication there. I also wanted to take up another. So the similar way, the goal number 2, you can see that end hunger, achieve food security. See the kind of assets comes under category B. The private assets like water conservation works, land development works, livestock infrastructure. So many assets that will lots of livestock infrastructure given to families. So these kind of assets will improve. For example, you got a cow shed, poultry sheds, or goat sheds, something like that. If you got a chance to keep livestock, and then the nutrition level of that family will definitely improve. You see, that is goal number 2. That one can see that undernourished people, they will. And again, the employment income, the women generally got engaged in Narega, and the income going into their pockets, it goes into buying additional food, milk, eggs, and all for the children. So it has an impact on the goal number 2. So that is a way one can see, take each goal. So we don't have time to explain each and every goal and how these targets are linked. My request to the students should take up each target, and you should link it with that, and you should do your own exercise on that. That's a way you should learn this one. I don't want to get into each targets, but I would like to mention the goal number 13. Because quite important from Narega's point of view. Narega is promoting a lot of climate resilient infrastructure, and goal number 13 talks about climate resilient infrastructure and climate mitigation and improving climate adaptive capacity of the people. See if you see today in this country how many trees we planted in under Narega, and how he helped the forest department to plant the trees. And so the planting of trees nothing but sequestrating carbon. The moment you sequestrate more carbon, that much of our capacity to adapt with the climate change and also to mitigate the climate change will improve. So there's a study done by the Indian Institute of Science. Probably it may be available in the website. You can go through that study and see how it's linked these things. So immense contribution Narega's to the achieving SDG goal, one can see. I think I took a little more time on establishing these linkages and creating at least some impression on how these two things are connected. So I stop here, and students must take this as an assignment, and linking each targets with the SDG targets with the Narega and all other rural development program. With this assignment, let me conclude here. Thank you very much for listening. Once again, thanks to organizers and Professor Ravichandran. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for delivering a wonderful lecture and honoring us. Really, it is eye-opener for the students to see how best they can link the Narega and with the sustainable development goals, and what else they can do in the village community extensions. On behalf of our
Thank
National
you.
Coordinating Institution, Unnat Abhiyan, IIT Delhi, I extend my sincere thanks to you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. We are concluding here, right?
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
sir. Thank you. Now I request Dr. Radhika Madam to join.
Thank you, Dr. Ravichandran. Tell me how much time is given to me now, and by what time I should conclude this session.
Madam, hearty welcome to this program. This is a virtual internship program on Sustainable Development and Community Engagement. It is being organized by Gandhigram Rural Institute, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, in collaboration with the National Coordinating Institution, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, IIT Delhi. The basic purpose is our UBA volunteers, students, should understand about the various aspects of sustainable development goal and community engagement. In that context, we have started this program, and we are happy to invite you to deliver the program on agripreneurship and rural development. So, by visiting these villages, adopted villages, how best the students can undertake all these works for the development of agriculture and rural development. Madam, the time allotted is half an hour, madam. Please help us to motivate the students. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to say something about Madam. Sorry, Madam Dr. Radhika Rani. She is having more than 20 years of
sorry for interrupting, Dr.
service.
Sure. I will.
Yeah, service. Yeah, yeah. In the National Institute of Rural Development, Hyderabad, she is a experienced professor, and in her area specialization agriculture and agrarian industries. So we are very fortunate to have a madam here. She is winner of the gold medal, I think, in her PG program. Thank you, madam. Please go ahead, madam.
Thank you, Dr. Ravichandran. Good morning to all the students who are part of this program. What I will be doing is I'll be sharing about my experiences of working in NIRDPR. As Dr. Ravichandran has said, that I'm a doctorate in agriculture sciences. My specialization is agriculture economics. And right now I'm heading a Center for Agrarian Studies at NIRDPR. This center right now is working with an institution which is of 1.5 old decade old, that is farmer producer organizations. And apart from that, I'm also the director for National Rural Livelihood Mission Resource Cell of NIRDPR, which the resource cell is working with institutions of 4 years old decade in this country, that is okay. So that institution is about 4 years old decade, that is self-help groups. So I will be sharing with you now my experiences of working in both the cells of this centers of NIRDPR, and where we are going ahead and what need to be done further. Now you are all part of this Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. So definitely there is some role that you also need to take up to take this agripreneurship or entrepreneurship in agriculture to take forward. So briefly, I'll be sharing with you about my experiences because the time is hardly about half an hour. So what I'm doing now and what together we can do in this context of UBA. Now I'll be sharing my experiences with all of you. So as agriculture is the topic that is given to me is agripreneurship and rural development. In fact, agriculture is an age-old entrepreneurship in this country being done by the farmers. It is not that just now we are talking about agripreneurship. It is an age-old agriculture itself, though we may talk is a culture, but it's basically an entrepreneurship that we are dealing with. The farmers are dealing with from since long. But the problem lies in all these years, we look at it as a business as usual scenario. So what need to be done? What are the changing paradigms? How we can take that particular livelihood to take forward? I'll be sharing with you. So because since it is a business as usual scenario, definitely now it is being talked for a long time that provided a chance is given, 46% of the farmers are willing to move out of agriculture. So it is revealed in the NSSO data. But it is also important for us to note down that now among the rural households, now it is a fact that roughly around 60% of the rural households are depending on agriculture. But at the same time, if you look at the income from agriculture alone for these rural households, it is hardly around 40%. The rest of the income of any rural household you take up, the rest of the income is coming either from Narega, which Dr. Jyotish just now shared with us, the experiences of Narega, either the income is from Narega or other agricultural labor or from non-farm sources. It could be of anything, but the source of income is only for agriculture rural household is hardly about 40%. So now we have to keep that in our mind, that I don't think even in the coming future also that 40% income will not change. Okay, but how to make that even keeping that in view, how to do that, ease of doing business for the farmers. So can they reduce the time they spend on agriculture further so that they can spend on other livelihoods also? This is what we need to take up, and this is what we are thinking in the present context. So in this context, what I will be sharing with you is, so now the paradigms are changing. So we have to now think of in the context of changing paradigms, because it is one of the three commanding heights of the economy. Agriculture sector is one of the three commanding heights of the economy. The other two commanding heights are, of course, one is manufacturing sector and service sector. But despite that, you have to keep in mind that this is the only sector which has brought all the people back into their lap during last year. In the period of lockdown, it has brought back to the people into their lap. This is the sector which has brought the people back into their lap, so now in this context of changing paradigm, that people's understanding or people's thinking about the agriculture sector is been changing. When I joined in NIRDPR, that is way back in 20 years back, I can say now, Center for Agrarian Studies is this is one center which is something look like an appendix of the other original centers of the NIRDPR. So just like, other centers, okay, CIS is also doing something, let them do some things on their own. So nobody used to bother much about the activities of CIS. But now this has become one of the prime centers of the agriculture of this NIRDPR, which is now looking after, which is now working with other centers of the NIRDPR. We are working with Center for Panchayati Raj, because now agriculture is one of the key areas of the Panchayati PRA institution. Then we are working with NRLM. I'll be sharing with you my experiences of National Rural Livelihood Mission. Then we are working with CWEPA, because wage employment, this Narega, as Dr. Jyotish must have just now shared with that 70% of the Narega works are related to the agriculture, and then increasing the natural resources for agriculture livelihoods. Then we are working with the Center for Rural Infrastructure. We are working with Center for Livelihoods. So there are many centers now, say CAS is working with. That means everywhere the role of agriculture has been increased in addition to our own ministries. So earlier, Minister for RD is different from that of a Minister for Agriculture and Ministry of Food Processing and Industries. But till recently, of course, we have a new minister who is exclusively allotted for RD. But just before that, we have a minister who is looking after Ministry of Rural Development, who is looking after the Ministry of Agriculture, and also the Ministry of Food Processing Industries. That means there is an increasing recognition in the role of agriculture for rural development. This is the point which I would like to enhance upon. Then there is an increase in the recognition of the role of the farmers' institutions. See, not that, institutions are not new in this country. Institutions are age old. We have cooperative institutions which have dated back to 1904. That is 100 years institutions are there in this country, which do look after the agriculture as well. But it is a fact that cooperative institutions are not, there were many cases of failures, few cases of success in the context of cooperative institutions. And then there is an increase in the recognition of the role of farmers institutions in order to improve the agriculture sector. So in this context, now FPOs are emerging very fast in this country. So farmer producer organizations have given a fillip. FPOs are giving a fillip in the last 1.5 decade. Now, as a policy support for FPOs is there, FPOs are emerging, with the company type of registration and also the cooperative type of registration. So the point which I would like to emphasize is that there is an increase in the role of farmers institutions. Then there is an recognition of increase in the recognition of the value addition in agriculture. So nowadays everybody is talking about, entrepreneurship, value addition, food processing and all, so that, you to take up the agriculture to the next stage. But my point here is that, say, value addition is not, agriculture value addition is not something we need to see in the context of some industry. See, whatever that we are doing, right from the pre-production stage to the production stage to the post-production stage, every stage there is a scope for increasing the value addition in agriculture. If you increase your productivity from 2 quintals to 3 quintals in an acre, that nothing but it is an entrepreneurship. That is nothing but that is also an agripreneurship. So that value addition, what value addition you can do to your existing area of works in agriculture sector, that is also an agri promotion, that's also an agri entrepreneurship. So in the pre-production stage, if you think of, if you are purchasing your inputs, so if you are whatever the inputs you are purchasing, whatever the inputs you are sourcing, if you can source those inputs with a low cost compared to a previous source from where you get the inputs, if from 100 rupees, if you can source the inputs from to 80 rupees, that is also a value addition, that is also an entrepreneurship. So everywhere, every stage, production stage also, if you increase your agronomic practices, if you do your agronomic practices in a better way, if you increase your water use efficiency, if you increase your soil fertility at the production stage, so that is also a value addition, and that is also an agripreneurship. It is agripreneurship. The point I would like to emphasize is that agripreneurship is not something like, you want to go and come back and set up an industry. Whatever that you are doing in agriculture, if you are doing in a better way, that is also an agripreneurship. Then even in the post-production stage, you are harvesting, you are doing the harvesting with a less cost, that is also an agripreneurship. And you are marketing, you are marketing the products with a better price when compared to earlier, that is also an agripreneurship. So as a farmer, as a student, that is what you have to think in mind, that so whatever that we are doing in agriculture, if we are doing in a better way today when compared to yesterday, that is also improving the value addition, that is also called as agripreneurship. So in improving our day-to-day practices, improving a small practices that adds value to the agriculture, that is called agripreneurship, and that means a lot. That means a lot for the rural development. So this is what we are focusing on right now. And the other point is that just now I touched upon is about farmers institutions. See, everywhere now there is an increase in the policy support for the institutions, and farmer based, these FPOs are emerging very fast in this country. But FPOs now basically, that what we have seen is basically men based institutions. So unfortunately, agriculture is mostly it is being genderized. Most of the activities of agriculture are genderized in this sector. You imagine, if you let us look at last year during the period of lockdown. Now we have seen, we have observed, and we have read that many of the people, the migrant labor, have gone back to their villages, started doing the agriculture, just taking up the activities of agriculture on their own. Now imagine what would have been happened all these years if these men are in their own, city, they're doing up other non-wage employment program. They're part of some wage employment in the urban cities, in the cities and urban areas. Who were doing the agriculture operations all these years? It is their women. It is their women, their wife or mother or sisters. These people are actually being part of the agriculture activities. So now it is when women are part of the agriculture activities. Again, while talking about the institutions, now we are saying that it is mostly the men-based institutions are dominating in this country. Now they're emerging, the FPOs are emerging, but FPOs mostly emerging are with the men-based institutions. So in this context, now again we are looking back and we are looking at existing women-based institutions in this country. Which are the existing women-based institutions? Nothing but self-help groups. So self-help group is nothing. It's a 4-decade-old old institution in this country, and they were part of, you know, mostly thrift and credit based activities. All these years, it's a successful institution in this country. About 700 lakh women are part of the 70 SDGs in 70 lakh SDGs in this country. So we have this institution, which has a wide network across the country, but mostly the activities were limited to the thrift and credit activities all these years. But now the government of India has recognized the role of importance of promoting livelihoods through these SDGs, and through National Rural Livelihood Mission at the apex, that is Ministry of India, and then state rural livelihood missions in all the states. Now we are encouraging these groups, women groups, to be part of the agriculture based livelihood activities. Now we are encouraging the women, the SDGs, to convert them into producer groups. We are envisaging about 80,000 producer groups in this country, and these 80,000 producer groups, shortly they are emerging into the producer enterprises. So now, on the other hand, women based producer enterprises are also emerging very fast in this country. So now imagine the scenario, if on the one hand, because we all, you know, cautiously safeguard our forts, being the part of the, you know, government institutions, being part of the ministry, I have seen that Ministry of Agriculture talks about FPOs, which are mostly now dominating by men-based institutions. Ministry of Rural Development talks about SDGs and producer enterprises, which are mostly dominated by the women-based. They are mostly the women-based institutions. Now we are also, being at the NIRDPR, we are also foreseeing a situation where in a village, both men-based institutions and women-based institutions are also emerging parallelly. So which is also a not, you know, healthy scenario if you look at in future, because both these institutions may compete with each other. Okay, so in this context, what we are now encouraging is that let we work parallelly. Let we work in. Let us leverage the strength of each other and work together. So in this context, what we are encouraging is that, now coming to our entrepreneurship topic also. So let us imagine there is an FPO, which is formed with about 1,000 farmers. So within the all these 1,000 farmers, they can form into producer groups of 20 to 30 producer groups. Each producer group can have its own livelihood, or it can have its own value addition activity. One group within an FPO can take up input business for their farmers. One group can take up the technology support to their farmers. One group can take up output business for the procurement of the farmers and can sell it outside. One group exclusively can take up the bio inputs. One group exclusively can take up the supply of vermicompost. Like that, you know, now is the sky is the limit. So let us say in an area where maize production is there, there can be one SDG or producer group can take up the business of primary processing of the maize. See what the farmers are doing right now, they are selling the maize directly to the market. So what if one group procures the maize and another group do the simple primary processing, like, you know, winnowing, cleaning, grading, and can sell it, they can fetch a higher price, right? The producer group in turn can have the service charges for doing the primary processing activity. Like that, now we are encouraging in our country all these types of mini activities that can be taken up by these producer groups in a large scale under the sector of agriculture. Like that, now agripreneurship, now we are encouraging. Agripreneurship is not something like, you know, taking up an activity, setting up of an industry, or, you know, of about 10 crores or 20 crores. Even if you have a small unit with about 10 lakhs, that would be enough. So that would be enough to cater the needs of your own farmers, so that you can have a livelihood, and in addition to your other income generating activities for your family. So this is what right now we are doing. That is, we are encouraging the farmers. We are encouraging the large number of producer groups to emerge in the agribusiness sector in this country. agribusiness scenario in this country. Let the producer groups, small producer groups, take up the activities of encouraging the manufacturing activities of agriculture, value addition activities of the agriculture, so that say if these groups take up the activity of primary processing or take up the activities of farmer producers, point is that you can cater the needs of the urban consumers, and you can take up the marketing activities of you can emerge. Maybe in the long run you can go to the export also, you can export your products, but that is in the long run. Immediately what we are encouraging our producer groups is that think of your own farmers as your consumers, think of your own rural market. You need not have to begin your activities with urban market. Rural market is a very big market in this country. That is why big FMCG products are also mainly they're looking at the rural markets only. So like that, these producer groups also should look at their own rural markets, understand the pain points of the rural farmers, and then try to fill up those gaps. That would be enough to promote the agri-entrepreneurship in the further rural development. Okay, and then yes, policy support also. And now in this context, the government of India is also giving lot of policy support compared to 5 years back or compared to 10 years back. The budget support for the agriculture, now last 5 years, the budget support for, there's a tremendous increase in the budget support for agriculture. Not only that, now if you and not only that, there is a policy support. In addition, there is a policy support, and for that policy there is a budget support. This is also we are observing. So of course, 12th 5-year plan onwards, we have Rashtriya Krishan Vikas Yojana. It's a major flagship program of agriculture. Now the government has come up last year the new FPO policy. New FPO policy also talks about bringing 10,000 FPOs in this country to promote the agripreneurship. And not only that, there's another interesting program of Government of India announced by the Finance Minister last year, that is Prime Minister's Formalization of Micro Enterprises, that is PMFME. PMFME under the Ministry of Food Processing Industries. See, now, right now there are 2 lakh SDGs in this country, informally doing some business, informally doing some agri-processing activity, maybe in a large scale. Now, under this PMFME, we are trying to formalize those micro enterprises, and then by giving a budget support, by giving a subsidy support to this of about 10 lakhs, and then we are trying to formalizing them. We are coming out with a large scale promotion of 2 lakh micro enterprises to be set up by the SDGs and by the FPOs in agriculture sector in this country. So one is, now as I said, FPOs is one area now which is coming up very fast to promote the agripreneurship. Then of course SDGs through the producer groups and producer enterprises are emerging very fast. And then there's a policy support of PMFME under MOFPI. All these are working together right now. The Ministry of RD, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Food Processing Industries, all of us are working together now to make this happen, to make this dream happen, that agriculture, though we call it as an entrepreneurship, should emerge fast, to emerge more than what is doing right now. So what will happen? So I think I may be taking another 5 to 10 minutes. So what is the road ahead? So what is the road ahead in the whole, if you look at the whole scenario? Of course, one is emerging agri-processing sector. Agri-processing sector is emerging fast, though we are, for a long time we have been saying that 46% of our fruits and vegetables is being wasted because of the lack of the proper primary processing facilities to begin with. Let us not think of secondary processing facilities, but we don't have sometimes primary processing, a minimum cold storage, minimum things, minimum proper harvesting facilities. We lack these facilities in this sector. Because of this, now many of the food products are being wasted at the time of harvest or post-harvest. So in order to minimize this harvest or post-harvest losses, and also in order to increase the value addition for the not only the fruits and vegetables, but also for the other cereal and pulse products. Now, agri-processing sector is emerging very fast in this country. Now, as I said, MOFPI is now coming up with a big support through PMFME and to take care of processing needs. So students, dear students, what I would like to share with you is, so look at what are the areas. Now MOFPI, what is doing right now is, every district they have identified one product that is called as ODOP approach. ODOP, that is, for every district there will be a unique product. For example, Chittoor, if you go to Chittoor in Andhra Pradesh, tomato, or if you go to Krishna district in Andhra Pradesh, it is for mangoes. So every district is prominent with one agriculture based product. Like that, now if you visit the website of the Ministry of Food Processing Industries, all the 600 plus districts in this country are identified with the unique product of the district. So now what we are envisaging is that in a particular district, we are promoting these SDGs and FPOs to go for the value addition activities of that particular product. So ODOP doesn't mean that we have to focus on that product only. But any district or any geographical area, the farmers will be growing multiple crops. They may not depend on one crop, but for the value addition of the particular crop, in order to go for primary processing or secondary processing facilities, the government of India now encouraging them to take up the ODOP approach. So that means for the particular product in a particular district, there will be a policy support and budgetary support if you want to set up an industry. So mango, in order to mango processing or mango pulp or whatever it is, Chittoor, the Ministry of Food Processing, the State Department of Food Processing will give some budgetary support. Like that, whichever of the districts you are working with, which are the districts you want to head with, go to the Ministry of Food Processing Industries website, look at for the particular district, what is the product identified. Try to encourage or try to build up the food processing facilities for the particular product to whatever that way you can do. So this is one idea. And the second idea is, because you are working with now I can see that IIT Delhi is part of this program, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. So what we are observing being at NIRDPR is that, say, Directorate of Science and Technology has identified many pain points, has come out with many technologies. Similarly, Honeybee Network also have identified many points and the pain points in the rural areas, and they have come out with many technologies. They have come out with many technologies that were developed by the farmers alone, not that we sitting in the technical institutions have come out with those technologies. Many technologies were there in the website or in the books of the archives of the Honeybee Network. So what we are looking for is, for example, recently I have gone to Nizamabad where the farmers have approached me, Madam, for a turmeric crop, Nizamabad is famous for turmeric. So for a turmeric crop, the major cost of production of a turmeric is cost of labor. That is, for the harvesting of turmeric, labor cost is more. It is 60% of the labor cost is just for harvesting of turmeric. So in that context, I have gone through some websites. Is there any technology available for this pain point? So now this is a pain point. You have to reduce your labor cost. So this is where, if you reduce your labor cost for turmeric harvesting, that itself is nothing but a value addition. That itself we call it an agripreneurship. So I have seen that yes, some machines are it's a Honeybee Network. Some machines were identified, and then that machines we can use them. But the point here is filling the gaps. Who will fill the gap? Okay, there is a pain point here. There is a technology there. There's a machine somebody has invented by a farmer with his own pain point. But who will fill? Now, how to bring that technology to the doorsteps of the farmers is a gap. That you should do that. My point is, the Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, maybe IIT Delhi may take up validating the technology is important. See, tomorrow I cannot suggest, being at NIRDPR, I cannot suggest, yes, there's a particular technology, you can use the technology, because I don't know about valid. I mean, I should not recommend also unless it is validated. So technical institutions like you, IIT Delhi or some other technical institutions, if you can validate those technologies, yes, this technology is applicable in this particular place, in this geographical area, under this context. If you can validate those technologies, organizations like NIRDPR can recommend and ask our people to implement those technologies. So this is where you have to take your role. So whenever you visit the villages, my suggestion to you is observe the pain points in the villages, observe the pain points of the farmers, and see the scope for leveraging those pain points into entrepreneurship. So promote the entrepreneurship by observing the pain points. So that is where you all have to chip in, and you have to take a role in this country. So with this, maybe I'll stop, and I'm handing over the mic to Dr. Ravichandran.
Thank you, madam, for sparing your valuable time and encouraging our Unnat Bharat Abhiyan volunteers towards all these programs and schemes of the government of India. And you also noted what the students has to do. It is a really interesting lecture. Definitely, it is yeah, input for the program, madam. Thank you for sparing your valuable time on behalf of Regional Coordinating Institution Gandhigram and National Coordinating Institution Unnat Bharat Abhiyan IIT Delhi. Once again, I thank you for sparing your valuable time, and I thank all the participants of this program for sparing the time to listen to this program. Thank you, Randall, and we will meet with the new titles tomorrow morning by 9:30. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Dr. Ravichandran. My pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Rahul, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ravichandran, and thank you, Radhika ma'am.